Look at me. I'm telling you what I feel, and you're gonna listen. You ruined my life. You ruined my fucking life. And I have no recourse but to say, go ahead, have it. Because at any time, of any moment of any day, you could take my life and say, your time's come, you're over.
So my name is Amiel Courtin-Wilson, and we're talking about the documentary Man on Earth.
And I'm dying. The doctor gave me less than 6 months to live. And February 23rd is the day it's going to be done. I scheduled my death.
It was a long process. I was researching another project entirely, a project called Traces, which is coming out next year. It's a project using thermal imaging cameras, so cameras that record heat as light to document the human body at the moment of death. We were looking for participants for, I would say, close to 18 months. So searching all around the world for people. And we reached out to around 1,500 different hospices and doctors and death doula organizations. And through that process, Robert heard about this other film, Traces. So Robert actually contacted us in 2019 and said, I've heard about this thermal project. I'd like to participate, but what I'd like in return is for you to film the last week of my life. So it was actually Robert's idea for the film.
Okay, this has to be kept a secret. Shh. It is what it is another new saying in my life. It is what it is. Ah, fuck it.
In many ways, he spoke about this himself. He was kind of like an everyman in this regard, you know, like, and so the Man on Earth was about this idea of someone facing such a gargantuan task ahead of them, as knowing the date of their death in advance, and because Bob had so much to get through in those 7 days in terms of healing certain relationships and saying those goodbyes and preparing. So that idea of scale was to do with what he was facing, and also this idea that he's sort of somewhat of an archetypal kind of character. So he contacted us in January of 2019, and he had scheduled his death in February. So we met once. I was in Australia, so we met over FaceTime. My producer and I, Alice, and so we basically had, from the moment we met him first over FaceTime to landing in the US to shoot, was only 3 weeks. So we had 3 weeks pre-production to find a crew, raise the money, which was thankfully, because I've been working in documentary for a long time, since I was 18, my first documentary, Chasing Buddha. And so since then, I've had a chance to work with a lot of different crew in Australia. And so in that short period, we were able to pick some amazing people who I knew would be perfect and very sensitive for this particular project, but also who were available. So it was very, very fast turnaround. And then the shoot itself was only 8 days with Bob. And then we did a little bit of like pickup shooting in Australia. So the sequences like the sailing on the water, as well as like the man falling through the air, those sequences we shot back in Melbourne after the fact. So in total, maybe 11 days. Because he was so sick and he tired very easily, we had to be really really efficient in how we worked with him in a family's home during this very, very profoundly delicate period. Like, Bob was very, very, very blunt about if he needed to rest or if he wanted us to leave, he would just ask us to leave. A lot of the time they sort of had to themselves to for family to arrive and also for them just to navigate the process. The main difference, I think, was because he was so passionate about sharing his story. The relationship was very, very accelerated. So we became very close very, very quickly out of necessity. So there's a scene in the film where he's sitting on the bed and he says, "Welcome to the family," and he starts to cry. That was only one day. Had been filming for 12 hours only. If I'd had the chance to follow Bob for a much longer period, I probably would have worked alone, just because of the nature of the material and how personal it was and how sensitive it was. I would have preferred to just build a rapport with Bob in a one-on-one context, but because things were so limited, I knew I needed to focus as much as I could on building that relationship with Bob. So I knew I needed a crew as well. So we had a crew of 4 in total. So it was a producer, Alice Jamison Dowd, sound recordist, Steve, amazing cinematographer, Jacqueline Fitzgerald, and myself. There were a couple of other people who we could have possibly made like a film about, like a couple of people we were speaking with. And part of the reason it was so clear that we wanted to tell this story with Bob is he and I are a little bit similar. So we have like similar sense of humor. And we just got along very, very well. So I remember 3 days into the filming, Bob and Jesse said, "Can we just all go out to dinner together and let's not film anything, because we just want to, we really love you guys and we just want to hang out with you and have a dinner." So we went out to a Chinese restaurant and we weren't allowed to bring the camera. And it was really at that moment, it was halfway through the filming process. And I think the whole crew felt just very, very humbled and very blessed that this family had welcomed us into their lives at this very crucial key time. And so I remember, the crew and I all shedding a tear. And then obviously in the lead up to Bob dying, that was also very, very sad. You can see the camera shaking a little bit because Jacqueline is, sobbing uncontrollably as Bob is, especially as House of the Rising Sun song starts playing in Bob's last moments. The sound recordist, and we were all just crying like crazy. So yeah, quite a few moments were very emotional. I think I just underestimated the experience of sitting in a room full of strangers and watching my friend die on screen. It was just a very strange experience. And after the film finished, I remember I walked outside and kind of had this delayed grieving process, actually. So it was almost like it was only that moment where the film screened publicly that I kind of let go of Bob in a different way. So it was unlike any other premiere, and it's difficult for me not to lose it entirely.
You controlled my life. You took everything away from me. You went into my life and you tore it apart and stole everything.
I certainly learned that unbelievably strong friendships can be formed in a matter of days. I mean, it was kind of unbelievable. I was speaking with the cinematographer, Jacqueline, just recently in the lead up to this festival screening. And even though she only spent 7 days with Bob, she counts him as being, one of the most important figures in her life because of the impact that he had on all of us. I think in some ways, finishing the film, but most importantly, screening the film to audiences around the world, the film's impact continues to, I think, evolve inside me, and I think I'll be continuing to kind of unpack the impact for a long, long time. People really seem to use the film like a tool. So there's this very specific way in which people engage with it, and I'm still just very, very humbled by how meaningful or how useful the film is for people to help them in their own grieving process.
If you believe in whatever you believe in, whether it be seeing somebody again in a different life, you'll be there waiting for her. Just think of it that way. You'll be able to throw her a grand party when she shows up.
This interest in this theme in general was in 2013. I saw my stepmother die, and it was also very impactful to see certain family members maybe not prepared fully for the grieving process, and it really, it's what got me thinking about maybe our lack of the way in which death is a taboo still in the West, and how little we discuss it and how little we're actually prepared for it. So because there's only at that time, I think 11 states in the US where it's legal, Washington's one of them. So it was just by luck that he was living in a state where it was legal. That's really what set me on the path initially. Just thinking that I would like to tell a story dealing with that in some way, and then once that's taken seed, then sometimes it's a couple of years, sometimes it's a couple of months. It really depends when the story arrives. But it was not the first time I'd seen someone die, but certainly it doesn't lose any of its intensity. It's still something that I'm unpacking, I think. There is a great emphasis on reminding yourself daily that death is imminent and death is real and death is very, very close. So for me, death is a perpetual reality, and if it should be integrated into living to lead a more fulfilling life.
Love the one you're with, and I mean that. If you love the one you're with, you will be true to your heart.